not only in this case, but I guess across the board, you support a pay-as-you-go
Absolutely.
system.
Yeah, I've seen it fail. I mean, I'm right now living the situation in Lackawanna County of his not paying as you go and running into commissioners before us more than doubled the size of the county's debt, living under that.
Speaking about the county issue, one of the first things you did, I think on day one, was start to talk about a code of ethics.
Correct.
And am I correct? One of the things was priority was not accepting gifts from anyone.
Correct.
Obviously, it was an important issue to you, and I'm wondering what your motivation was at that time. Did you feel that there was a problem in Lackawanna County or throughout the region with gifts influencing politicians?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we try to do is a whole host of different things. The Code of Ethics was one of those things. But in order to restore confidence and trust, we thought that we had to do a whole host of different things. That was one of them. We thought that it was just a good practice. When we got there, and before we got there, Commissioner Washoe, who's a minority commissioner, would come in during the Christmas time, during the holiday season, and there would be piles of gifts from vendors there. Literally piles. I mean, where you couldn't even get to the office, there'd be huge baskets and big hams and turkeys and flowers and plants. And I mean, the office was filled with stuff. And he had talked a lot about that, and we talked about that stuff during the campaign and said that's just outrageous that these people are doing that. I mean, it just doesn't look right. There's a perception thing there, people doing that. So we did that. We also advertised jobs, so that in the past, the only way you got a job, I think in Lackawanna, but I think in other counties as well, I'm not going to prejudge, but was if you knew somebody and you knew the job was available, or else you didn't even know there was a job available in the county. So we post all of our jobs online. We also advertise them in the newspaper. Whenever there's a contract that's a professional service, we do an RFQ type of request for qualifications. We do requests for proposals. Every contract that we enter into, every single one of them is on our county website online. We take minutes. The last administration didn't even keep minutes of the commissioners' meetings. So unless you could find the tape from that specific meeting, there's no record of the meeting. So I mean, little things like that. So we've taken steps with respect to just making government more open and transparent, making it easier for people to apply for jobs. If you look at our chief of staff, our chief of staff, we didn't even know who she was. Marie Elkins, didn't even know her. I don't even, to this day, even know what political party she's in. Don't even know the answer to that. She's just excellent. She's from Sinram. She was she was in the HR department at Sinram. She was our human resource. And then when Dr. Liz Randall left our administration, went with the state treasurer, she went into that position. Jim McLean, who's our purchasing director, we didn't even know him. He was from a large trucking company. He does our purchasing. Rick Jones, our insurance guy, we didn't even know him. I mean, so there's these people, when you go out and do that, and I remember the website, it was like Open Lackawanna or something when we first got in, and we had some big ads out with all the positions that we were trying to fill. We had hundreds and hundreds of people submit information, and people were interviewed, and then the best people were selected based on the interviews and their credentials. And people were shocked when we did it, but we did it. And we think we're better off for it. We think the county's better off for it.
Are you surprised at the level of corruption and the allegations that have been made in our region in the past year and a half?
Yes. Yeah. Can't believe it. I am surprised.
What do you think are the contributing factors?
Well, I think government not being open and transparent, I think it was probably one of the largest factors in all the cases. It's probably one of the largest factors.
Has anyone ever?
And I think people not feeling a sense of accountability to the public too, I think, was probably another factor.
Has anyone ever approached you in an official capacity and tried to sway you one way or the other, and how do you handle those situations?
Well, I mean, pretty easy. I mean, the way that I always handle that kind of stuff is by saying, hey, we're doing things differently here. And it's better for you as a taxpayer that we're doing things differently. If somebody says, hey, I want to buy you dinner. Can't buy me dinner. Code of Ethics doesn't allow me to accept dinner from you. You're a vendor. You're better off knowing that. If here I am just sitting with you and you're not buying me dinner, then you know that I'm doing the same thing when I have other people who I'm sitting down with. So you should feel better off as a taxpayer that nobody's taking me out to some big dinner, and things like that. So I always kind of say that to them. I said, you should appreciate this because you can keep your profits of your company. You don't have to invest them in people who are in government.
Has it been an issue for you for the past 2 years, or do you approach it?
No, it hasn't been an issue. I mean, you handle that. It's very rare that something like that is very, very rare. I mean,
I want to talk to you about the issue of immigration because, if you advance to the general election, you would be facing Mr. Barletta. He has obviously stated his views. You're favoring a path to citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Can you define that for us a little bit and tell us what you're...
Sure, it's not amnesty. So let's not get all worried about amnesty. It's not that. Let's back up. I think, first of all, with respect to immigration, we have to secure our borders. But securing our borders alone isn't going to solve this problem. I think that the reason why illegal immigrants are here is because there's work here. And the only way that you're going to slow down that is by significant penalties on employers. They're going to come, illegal immigrants are going to come here as long as there's an ability to work here. If the demand or if the supply is closed and is reduced, then they're not going to be, they're going to go somewhere else where it's easier to get a job. So I think the employers in our region have a significant responsibility to ensure that they are not hiring illegal immigrants. And if they stopped doing that, I think that would dry up to a significant degree. So I think there's a great deal of employer responsibility. I think we've seen the INS and others come into some employers here over the last several years with respect to raids and trying to clean some of that up. Needs more of that. Our employers need to understand that and need to work with us because rebuilding our economy requires that we put people back to work in the private sector. I'm not a fan of creating government jobs, never have been, but I am a big fan of creating private sector jobs, and we need as many private sector jobs for tax-paying citizens of this country and residents of our region as we can possibly have. Employers have to understand that and have to understand that if they're violating the rules, that they're going to be hit with harsh penalties. Having said that, when you have the number of undocumented workers that we've got in this country, shipping them back to wherever they've come from is, I don't think, a real feasible thing to do. Not to mention, if you just keep them on the run, it's difficult to find them. We can expend a lot of resources, a lot of time on rounding people up, but at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult to do that and very costly. And again, we have very limited resources, especially in this economic climate. So we just don't have money to be able to go and do that. So I don't think it's realistic. So I think we got to start with some realistic ideas. And realistically, I think if we said to these undocumented workers, back of the line, you got to go through the process. If you don't make it through the process, you're gone. But back of the line, and you start from there. Because I just don't think it's realistic to say we're just going to put everybody on a bus and we're going to take them to the airport and we're going to fly them all around the world to where they came from. I just don't think that that's realistic. And locking them up, is building a few more prisons what we should be doing too? I mean, to lock them up and then we're going to spend thousands of dollars on them a year. I mean, it just we got to have some sense of what's realistic here. And I think that I would work toward that approach.